Good day, Ma'am Rizla, and to all my classmates. As a fulfillment of the requirements for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Engineering, BSAeE, we would like to present to you a research paper on the topic Business Ethics. So, what are you waiting for, future leaders? Buckle up and enjoy the ride. But wait, before we proceed to the content of our presentation, I would like to present to you the group members of Group 2, starting with Mr. Robert T. Adel Samir Fahim, Mr. Miguel Luis R. Ailes, Mr. Vincent Bennett M. Baligwat, Miss Mary Joyce D.C. Cunanan, Mr. Kent Harris Gabinete, Mr. Mark Daniel Ganzote, Mr. Nelson S. Herrera, Mr. Jorel Cyrus Bioriel, and Miss Shanemar R. Seno. Again, we are the Group 2. Sit back and relax as we present to you the beauty of business ethics. Mr. Ganzote, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Bachelor. Starting off with the table of contents, we will begin with the introduction of business ethics. In this part, we will discuss the following: moral features of business acts, the invisible harm argument, the legal argument, the amorality argument, and the lastly, immorality argument. The next part of our presentation will be on some ethical issues in the context of business ethics. So in this part, we, the researchers, will define some ethical issues that are present in business ethics, focusing on issues that are systemic, corporate, and individual respectively. First up, systemic issues. In this part, we will discuss the following: morality of capitalism, the doing business in a global economy. Moving on to the next chapter, corporate issues. For corporate issues, we have the following: corporate moral responsibilities, advertising, discrimination, employee privacy, and anti-competitive practice of corporation. And the last issue is to be discussed, individual issue. Here we will discuss the conflict of interest, sexual harassment, political tactics, employee theft, and whistleblowing. Next up, the objectives is to be presented by Miss Mary Joyce Cunanan. Miss Cunanan, the stage is yours.
So now, the objectives of our presentation are: first, for us to provide an overview to our assigned topic, which is business ethics. And second is to have a grasp of the ethical principles that guides our business. And the third one is for us to be aware that ethical standards in the business play in today's society is very important. And lastly, is to know and be aware of some business ethics issues, especially the systematic, corporate, and individual issues. So here is Mr. Sidney Violet to continue our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Cunanan. Now, let's finally begin with our presentation. Applied ethics. Guys, from our previous discussion on our subject ethics, what do you think applied ethics is? Mr. Robert, do you have any idea what applied ethics is?
It is the application of ethics to deal with real-life problems.
Like?
I think bioethics, research ethics, and others.
Wow, great. Any more answer, Mr. Ganzote?
One of three branches of ethics.
Okay, together with normative and meta-ethics. Lastly, Ms. Cunanan?
Well, I think it examines particular issues in both the personal and social spheres that are matters of moral judgment.
Okay, thank you. Now, let's continue with your slide. Kindly read the definition of applied ethics. Mr. Herrera.
The term applied ethics describes the field concerned with the real applications of ethical principles. It's the branch of ethics concerned with the right and wrong of actual human behavior in settings as diverse as personal and socio-economic relationships, business, healthcare, environment, technology, law, and leadership.
Okay, thank you. In simple words, applied ethics is one of the three main branches of ethics, together with normative and meta-ethics. Normative meaning ethics concerned with the principles of morality, and meta-ethics is whether morality exists. So, bakit kaya natin ito sinali sa presentation natin? Do you have any idea bakit nasali ang applied ethics? Eh, di ba business ethics lang tayo?
Well, because it has something to do with our topic that we need to present.
Yes, exactly. Kasi nga, di ba, as what was mentioned earlier, ang applied ethics is application of application of ethics in real life problems. So yun lang yun, basically. So we have here the examples, IT ethics, engineering ethics, public health ethics, medical ethics, and research ethics. Aside from those mentioned field of ethics, do you have any more idea, Mr. Cyrus?
Political ethics.
Nice.
Nursing ethics.
Yes, Mr. Gasote?
Military ethics.
Okay, nice. Thank you for that. Now let's begin with business ethics. And why does it matter? Can you proceed with the slide? So, let's answer this question. What is business ethics and why does it matter? Do you have any idea, Mr. Baligwat? What is business ethics?
So, business ethics is the ethics in the context of business.
Okay, yes, logical. Kasi kapag babasahin mo naman, ethics in the field of business. Miss Shaymar?
And prescribed code of conduct for business.
Yes, and Mr. Gabinete, do you have any answer?
Examining ethical principles and moral or ethical principles that can arise in the business environment.
Okay, that's very correct. Now, let's answer why does it matter. Do you have any idea? Bakit kayo ba matter yung business ethics ngayon? Ba't kailangan natin pag-aralan pa? Mr. Ailes?
First, it can limit risk with good business ethics.
How about you, Mr. Robert?
It improves your business reputation itself.
Okay, that's correct. Kasi di ba kapag alam mo kung ano yung code of conduct ng business mo, then magiging maganda yung tingin sa'yo ng tao, yung reputation niya, and mas tataas yung tingin sa'yo ng tao. So, that's very right. Tama naman yung mga sinabi niyo. But now, let's proceed with the answers to those questions. We have Mr. Robert Adelti, Samir Fahim, and Mr. Kent Harris Gabinete to answer that question. What is business ethics and why does it matter? Mr. Robert, the stage is yours.
So, what is business ethics? The ethics of business, which are a subset of a larger societal ethics, have always been influenced by the ethics of every generation. To act in an ethical manner, one must in the end decide what constitutes right and wrong. There are fundamental norms that apply everywhere in the world and define what kind of business operation are proper and improper. By definition, business ethic refers to the standards of morally right and wrong conduct in business. Law partially defines the conduct, but legal and ethical aren't necessarily the same. Business ethics enhances the law by outlining acceptable behaviors beyond governmental control. Even while it seems straightforward, there is much more business ethics than simply upholding morality. It's important to ensure that acts in the workplace are consistent with one's moral principles. Many businesses have long-term failures as a result of failing to prioritize business ethics. Social responsibility is a subtopic of business ethics in general. In the workplace, social responsibility is equally as crucial as corporate ethics. So, Mr. Kent Gabinete, it's all yours.
Thank you, Robert. So, why does it matter? There's a need for a discussion on the topic of ethics in business attributable to the notion that business practices can become unethical, and there is a significant amount of evidence of unethical business practices in existence today. It matters because it talks about how business operates of being an ethically moral, if a business run with having a good reputation and its operation, whether in manufacturing of demand, work environment in offices, sales in the market, their business can grow bigger and greater. Sydney, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Adel Sabir Fahim and Mr. Gabinete. Our next slide will be the introduction to better understand business ethics. Can you read the slide for me, Mr. Ariel?
Thank you, Mr. Sintibayle. Understanding business ethics, moral features of business acts, the invisible hand argument, the legal argument, the amorality argument, and the immorality argument. So, I would like to proceed to Mr. Cindy to discuss the other topics for today.
So introducing the researcher for the introduction, we have Mr. Nelson S. Herrera, Mr. Jordan Cyrus Oriel, and of course yours truly, Sidney Albaile. So as your researcher for the introduction. Let's begin with the general topic of understanding business ethics. So, hindi natin naiintindihan kung anong business ethics kung hindi natin alam kung anong word na ethics. Alam niyo na ba ang word na ethics, di ba? Kasi na-discuss na sa atin yun. Pero kapag titignan mo siya ng business ethics, hindi na natin siya agad maintindihan kasi wala tayong idea. So let's first understand what is ethics. Ethics is used to refer body of knowledge that establishes the standard for what individuals and communities should or should not do. So, in business or corporate world, nagagamit natin yan. Kasi di ba, kailangan natin ng accountability in the process of making absolute decisions outside of knowledge or set of standards. That's how you understand business ethics. Let's proceed with moral features of business acts to be presented by Mr. Jordan Cyrus Oriel. Mr. Oriel, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Sintibayle. So I will discuss what is moral features of business act. Understanding business ethics. So before I will proceed to the lesson for today, so may konti lang akong katanungan. What are moral features? So Mr. Miguel.
Moral character primarily refers to a collection of qualities that differentiate one individual from another. Although in a cultural level, the group of moral behaviors to which a social group adheres can be said to unite and define it culturally as distinct from others.
So ito po ay yung isang moralidad na nagbibigay ng karakteristik sa isang individual, sa isang tao, na hinahalintulad ito sa pagsama sa isang grupo. Na ito rin ay nakakatulong upang mabigyan ng pagkakatukoy ang isang individual o ang isang tao. Moral in business offers a basis for understanding the moral agent features. The idea as a moral agent appeals to the human characteristic embodiment as a derivative of agent and fragility, accountability, honesty, healthy, competitions, and so on. Ang moralidad daw ay kabalikat na ng isang uri ng negosyo. Anumang uri ng pagninegosyo, ito ay dapat na naaayon sa moralidad. Kung ito ba ay tamang gawin o gagawin. Naaayon na ito ay pagbasihan upang sa gawa, upang sa ikabubuti ng nasa isang uri ng negosyo. Ano ba ito? Accountabilidad. Pagiging handa at responsable sa nakaatang na gawain ng isang negosyo na nasa iyo ay pinagkaloob. Pagiging tapat. Pagiging tapat, totoo, sa negosyo, trabaho, dahil ito ay isang responsibilidad na nakaayon sa moralidad. Malusog na kompetisyon. Ito ay isang gawa na nagbibigay ng kahulugan na batas na pagninegosyo. Isa rito ay pagiging legal, katunayan na ikaw bilang negosyante ay may credibilidad. So now let's proceed to the invisible hand argument. But before I discuss the invisible hand argument, may konti lamang akong katanungan. What is invisible hand argument? Mr. Kent Cabinet.
So the invisible hand is a metaphor which within the free markets, the domestic burgeoisie invest in their home country.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. The concept of invisible hand refers to the unseen force that steer the free market economy. The best interests of society are served by individual interests and freedom of productions and consumptions. Ang invisible hand argument ay ang teorya na ang ekonomiya ay kusang nagpapatuloy sa paggalaw kahit na walang nagmamanipula o pinanghahawakan ng pamahalaan. Ito ay patuloy na gumagalaw, hindi lang iisa ang nakapaloob rito, kung hindi, ang produksyon at komersyo ay kasama rito. Ang isa sa halimbawa nito ay ang produksyon ng langis sa ating bansa. Tayo man ay nagpuproduce nito, karamihan ay galing sa pag-aangkat. Hindi lang isa ang bansa na pinag-aangkatan natin ito, bagkus ay marami pang iba. Kaya kung gumalaw man ang presyo ng merkado ng petrolyo sa malawakang merkado, ito ay nakaka-apekto hindi lamang sa isang bansa, kundi ang lahat ng bansa na nakapaloob. So, kakat ko na doon. It is a common practice in business world today. Invisible hand argument is frequently used in the corporate world to defend seeking profit and self-interest. Ginagamit din ang invisible hand argument upang ipagtanggol ang interes ng isang negosyo o ng isang korporasyon. Ito ay ginagamit upang patunayan na may karapat dapat sila na panghawakan ito bilang isang lehitimong negosyo. Ginagamit din ito upang patunayan na sila ay nakakatulong hindi lamang para sa kanila kundi para sa ikabubuti ng isang komunidad. Now, salamat sa pakikinig. Now, I will give the stage to Mr. Nelson Herrera to discuss the legal argument.
Thank you, Mr. Ariel. Another subtopic of business ethics is the legal argument. Today, in order to avoid getting into legal issues, businesses need to conduct themselves ethically. The majority of business people are aware of the importance of laws as significant social rules with severe punishments. This kind of argument is typical in the business sector. So, businesses should be in a manner that is connected to moral standards so as to prevent legal issues. So, what are the examples of legal issues in businesses? Mr. Violet.
Well, today we have financial.
Ms. Kunanan.
Well, I think advertising.
Okay, good. Mr. Ariel.
Contractual,
Okay. Next, Mr. Ailes.
Operations.
And lastly, Mr. Baligwan.
Another example is sole proprietorship versus LLC.
Very good. So those are the examples of legal issues in businesses. Mostly sa mga negosyanteng tao, ang batas ang pinaka-importanteng patakaran sa negosyo at ito ay hindi lingid pagdating sa negosyo. Kailangan magkaroon ng pananaliksik ng mga etika para magkaroon ng pamantayang ethical na dapat ipatupad ng may legal na parusa, and also to determine if there are difference between business ethics and business law, and what should business people consider the distinction between business law and business ethics significantly. There will be no big impact in breaking ethical guidelines, but if the legislators will add in legislations, syempre magkakaroon na ng conflict. Pero naniniwala ang mga ibang negosyante na magkakaroon lang ng ethical guidelines kapag ito ay naaprubahan na. Kaya sa mga negosyante, hindi nila sineseryoso ang prinsipyo sa ethical as long as there are laws that controls corporate activity. So, as a result, business ethics is insignificant to the business, and business people is not considering this because they believe that law is more important in controlling economic activity. So, another subtopic of business ethics is the amorality argument. The term amorality can be referred to moral relativism, as in amoral management, unethical leadership, and a lack of moral consciousness. A morality concept converges in one fundamental area of common ground, which is irrelevance and inapplicability of moral considerations, guidelines, rules, and principles in the decision-making process. So, what is moral relativism? Anyone? Mr. Dalsote.
Moral relativism holds that there are no universal or absolute moral principles.
Very good. It's morality that advocates to each his own. Okay, remember that line. To each his own.
To each his own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ibig sabihin nun, walang pakialaman, parang gano'n. And those who are adhere to it argue, who am I to judge? So, parang who am I to judge? Parang wag natin i-judge yung business na yan. In a morality argument, researchers are not sure what is exactly a morality is. What is the idea in terms of amoral cognition, amoral behavior, and amoral culture? Ayon sa mga researchers, base sa mga interpretasyon tungkol sa amorality argument, it only falls in irrelevance and incapability, which means walang kaugnayan ito sa moral conditions, guidelines, rules, and principles in decision making. The last subtopic for business ethics is the immorality argument. So, what is immorality argument? Mr. Ken.
Morally wrong behavior or behavior that deviates from society standard of what is acceptable.
Excellent. Dito sa immorality argument, kadalasan sa atin sa pakikipag-ugnayan sa lipunan ang pagiging immoralidad. Sapagkat ito ay likas at emosyonal na pag-uugali natin, pero kapag ang tao ay nakabase sa moral na karanasan, they do it with logical rationality in social interactions. Ang panlipunang moralidad, pati na rin ang moral na damdamin sa mga gawaing panlipunan ay napabayaan sa contemporary anthropological studies. So, ano nga ba ang contemporary anthropological? Anyone? Miss Conano.
Well, I think it simply means the study of modern human condition.
Okay. So it's the study of modern human condition. Tama. The researchers caught the attention of employers, and employees to study the moral and immoral of individuals. To conclude, individuals must first consider why people act immorally in order to prevent it in a workplace situation. Mr. Baile, the stage is yours.
So, thank you, Mr. Herrera. Now, let's proceed with some ethical issues in business ethics. Can you read the description, Mr. Baligwat?
So some ethical issues in business. Developing the ability to recognize ethical issues within a wider context is a crucial first step in learning ethics. When it comes to the business world, ethical issues which were once almost mainly concerned with misrepresentation, or personal issues in the workplace. The term ethical issue can be used to define a variety of business-related topics. As a result of this, hundreds of different concepts have been placed forward in order to describe how ethical issues relating to business should be defined.
Thank you, Mr. Baliguat. So, ito naman, ang ibig sabihin lang naman nito is that kapag gusto mong malaman o intindihin ng isang bagay, kailangan gumawa ka ng step, which is to recognize and understand kung ano yun. Example, kapag may nakita ka isang tao, tapos malalaman mo ba na malungkot agad siya? Malalaman mo. Miss Shane Mar, malalaman mo? Oriel, malalaman mo ba?
Hindi agad.
Yes. Kasi, malalaman mo siguro na may malungkot based sa facial expression. Pero hindi mo siya agad malalaman na ano yung problem niya without you asking kung ano yun, di ba? So yun lang din sa ethics. Hindi mo malalaman kung anong ethics kung hindi mo siya aalamin. Hindi ka gagawa ng way to understand it. So let's proceed to the overview of some ethical issues in business. So here's the complete overview. We will not read it kasi nasabi naman yan sa table of content. So let's just proceed to introduction of the researchers. So for systemic issues, we have Mr. Mark Daniel Galzote and Mr. Adel Samir Fahim. So Mr. Adel Samir Fahim, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Baile. So, systemic issues. In ethical business, systemic issues are those with moral concerns regarding the economic, political, and other social systems that the firm relies on or brought up. In other words, the macro level of corporate ethics is also known as these systemic difficulties. An important base upon which business strategy is constructed is the ethical standards that we ingrained in organization's rules and process. The ethical norms and behavior of people working in the environment and those working outside of it, the division of ownership and the management can frequently diverge. So, one systemic issue is the morality of capitalism. The dominating, do you guys know what the dominating economic system on the planet is today? Anyone? Sydney?
Well, today we have a capitalism.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Mr. Bailey. So, the dominating economic system on the planet today is capitalism. A common conception of capitalism is an economic system where individual actors own and control property according to their interests and where supply and demand freely determine market prices in a way that can best serve society. Capitalism concerns whether it is fundamentally ethical or unethical. One view holds that capitalism is fundamentally unethical. Critics have argued that capitalism has an inherent tendency to generate great wealth for some people while leaving others much less well off. Critics also point to the unethical behaviors that private enterprise, and in particular, the profit motive tends to produce. So I have a question. Can you give me an example of capitalism, Mary Joyce?
Pharmaceutical companies invest in research and develop treatments for various illnesses. So their innovations often pay off in increased profit, while also making the new medical advances available to the people.
That's a very good example, Mary Joyce. So we're going to be moving off to the next. I'll pass the mic to Mr. Mark Galzote.
Thank you, Mr. Robert.
Welcome.
Doing business in a global economy. First, do you have any ideas on what is global economy? Machine?
The total of economic activity that take place both within and between nations can be referred to as the global economy.
Oh, thank you. Another one, Mr. Ailes.
Second is the interconnected international economic transactions that take place between various nations are referred to as the global economy.
Oh, thank you. The globe is vast and everyone is connected when it comes to business. Whether you create and sell things on a worldwide scale, global business has an influence on every company. The pandemic has had a significant impact on the global economy during the previous 2 years. Many industries have struggled and continue to struggle. Lahat po ng bansa sa mundo ay nagiging konektado pagdating sa negosyo. Well, sino ba ang ayaw ng negosyo? Lahat ng siguro ng tao sa iba't ibang parte or lugar sa mundo ay gusto ng negosyo, di ba?
Tama.
Taga-benta ka man o ikaw man mismo ang gumagawa ng mga produkto na naibebenta sa buong mundo. Simula nung dumating ang COVID-19, napakalaki na naging apekto nito sa ating global na economy. Madami ang nawalan ng trabaho, mga taong nagtatrabaho sa insurance industry, auto industry, and aviation industry at iba pa. Business ethics in a global economy may be simply stated as a company's social and environmental responsibilities. According to this definition, corporate ethics necessitates that companies' choices be made not only from a limited economic, corporate ethics, economic viewpoint, but also with social and environmental consideration in mind. This means that those who work in business should think about how their economic action influences other people, the environment or society as a whole. In other words, the interests of all relevant parties or stakeholders are recognized and evaluated. Does anyone here know what is stakeholders? Anyone? Ms. Merjoyce?
I think it is a person with an interest or concern in something, especially in business.
Anyone? Other? Ms. Nelson? Mr. Nelson?
Individuals, groups, or organizations who are directly or indirectly involved with a project, product, service, and enterprise.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. Bakit nga ba mahalaga ang business ethics sa bansa at paano ito naaapektuhan ang global economy? So, sasagutin. Business ethics is an essential skill. It drives the employee's behavior and it benefits from the bottom line. Halos lahat ng kumpanya ay meron na ngayong business ethics program. Sa isang bahagi ay ito ay dahil na pinadali at ng teknolohiya at digital na komunikasyon sa pagtukoy at pagsasapubliko ng mga maling hakbang sa etika. Upang maiwasan ang mga negatibong implikasyon, ang mga kumpanya ay naglalaan ng mas maraming mapagkukunan sa etika sa negosyo. And ngayon, may tanong ako sa inyo. Sa tingin nyo ba nakabubuti or nakasasama ang global economy? Mr. Oriel?
Nakakabuti to. Dahil marami tao makakapag-participa sa isang negosyo, labas at loob na ng bansa.
Thank you. Anyone? Any other question? Answer? Mr. Baligo?
Yes, because the new global economy has made use of the rising means of transportation and communication, which enables to link regions as lower cost.
Okay, thank you. Any other answers? Wala. Okay. So we will now proceed to Mr. Bailey. I will pass the mic to Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Galzote. Now, moving on to corporate issues, we have the researchers, Mr. Vincent Baligwat, Mr. Ken Harris Gabinete, and of course, yours truly again, Sydney L. Violet. So let's begin with the general topic of corporate issues. Corporations and other organizations like people have obligations that they are expected to fulfill, and they are held accountable if they are able to do so. In the same way, individuals are held accountable for failing to meet their responsibilities. First and foremost, I have a question. Ano sa tingin niyo ba ang corporation or a company is a moral agent? Sa tingin niyo, corporation, di ba na-mention yan before sa subject natin in ethics? Ang corporation or company ba, sa tingin niyo, moral agent siya?
Yes.
I guess. Yes, majority said yes. Masasagot natin yan later on. First, let's talk about how company and corporation differ from each other. So, ang company kasi, ito, hinahawakan niya lang naman yan, is smaller organizations. While ang corporation is bigger na siya. Yun lang yun. Corporation and company differs kung ano yung hawak nila, kung gaano kalaki. Yun lang naman yun. So, ang concept kasi ng corporation is that it's neither individual or system. Hindi siya ganun. Kundi, pinagsama siya. So, in a way, hindi mo siya pwedeng sabing individual lang siya, hindi mo siya pwedeng sabing system lang siya. Dapat sabay, pareho sila. Kasi tama naman, di ba? Kapag sa corporation, ang corporation hindi naman mabubuo yun kung walang tao. Ang corporation hindi mabubuo kung walang sistema. So, hindi mabubuo ang dalawang yun kung wala silang pareho. So, yun lang yung gusto ko sabihin sa inyo when it comes to corporation. And sa corporation, magkakaroon tayo ng issues doon kasi di ba, meron naman tayong issues sa individual, meron din tayo sa systemic. So, doon pa lang sa dalawang yun, meron na. Paano pa pag pinagsabay na, di ba? Yun lang, ganun magigets nyo yan, ang corporate issues. So, let's move on to corporate moral responsibility. So, corporate moral responsibility. Sa word pa lang na yun, corporate moral responsibility. Naiintindihan niyo na ba siya?
Yes.
Sige, ano corporate moral responsibility kapag babasahin mo lang?
Ito yung isang responsibility ng isang kumpanya na kailangan nila panghawakan dahil sila ay naglilingkod sa komunidad.
Okay, I will agree with that, but sa tingin ko para sa akin hindi. Kasi ang sinabi mo lang, corporate responsibility. Hindi mo siya sinabing corporate moral responsibility. So isa-isahin natin yan. Responsibility. So ang responsibility is a duty or task that you are required or expected to do. So example natin dyan, ang isang instructor natin, di ba responsibility niya na turuan tayo with respect to the codes of ethics ng pagtuturo. So yun yung responsibility niya kasi nung nag-oath siya na magturo, kailangan niya na yun, parang pinahawakan niya na yun. Yun yung responsibility. Ang moral responsibility naman is responsibility pa rin siya, pero alam niya na kung ano yung tama sa maling responsibilidad. Parang sa instructor natin, alam niya na dapat kung ano yung tama sa mali para sa responsibilidad niya na yun. While sa corporate moral responsibility, it is a responsibility whether that responsibility of that corporation is tama na or mali. Yun lang yun. Gets nyo naman na siguro yun, di ba? Corporate moral responsibility. So in light of this, kapag pinagsama natin na parang, ano sa tingin nyo mas importante? Yung responsibility ng isang corporation, ng isang company, or yung origin niya? Or kung saan siya nagmula? Any idea?
Syempre, mas importante yung responsibility and proper way to manage the business.
Yes, tama naman yun. Yun nga yung nasabi dun sa isang research na conducted, dun, na nasali din sa research paper namin. Nasabi niya dun na parang mas importante talaga ang moral responsibility more than anything. Kasi that moral responsibility is the present. Dapat yung present yun yung magpapatuloy. So yun lang naman gusto ko sabihin sa moral responsibility. Now let's move on to the next subtopic to be presented by Mr. Gabinete. Mr. Gabinete, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Sydney. First things first, let's define what advertising ethics are. Advertising is profoundly essential for every business, particularly when employing digital technologies to showcase and promote their goods and services to the public. Advertising ethics are the moral principles that govern how a business communicates with members of its target audience. Companies advertising products and services can be unethically erroneous to lessen their competitor size and weaken their market productions in general. So, when kaya nagiging ethically immoral and moral yung business advertising? So, by starting being ethically immoral, let's say for an instance, there is one business that promotes their goods in the general public. Examples are the vitamins and medicines. Instead of promoting a factual and with a legal basis of their products, they want to trick or deceive anyone that is good for their health and may help them. But in fact, when they take that, there's no effect and may also harm or even kill themselves. For their improper and having no legal documents na nagpapatunay na gumagana or talagang nakakatulong yung mga products na ay talagang mali in the first place. On the other hand, business advertising can be ethically moral. This is the complete opposite of the other one. So let's use again the example of kanina, of promoting a product which are the vitamins and medicines. So if they advertise morally by giving them a correct information and a lack of deceit, we can call that as an ethically moral. Kahit na hindi popular man yung business nila, ay talagang inuuna nila yung kapakanan ng nakakarami kaysa naman sa pagpapatagpulan ng negosyo. Halos lahat naman ng businesses sa online or digital are ethically moral.
Well, dahil in the first place, for sure nasa legal basis naman at may good sides. So, move on to the next corporate issue in business ethics, the discrimination. So, what is discrimination? Anyone? Sidney.
Well, I think today, actually, it's an unfair and unjust treatment.
Okay, tama. Another, idea? No, sir.
A bias and illogical judgment to someone or group of people.
Discrimination is a never-ending issue around the whole world that suffers people from emotional and physical aggression, abuse, bias, and illogical judgment. Discrimination in the workplace is based on certain prejudices and occurs when an employee is treated unfavorably because of gender, sexuality, race, religion, pregnancy, and maternity or disability. Discrimination was existed before and still happens until now in today's living. Discrimination can never have a positive side and still suffers people from emotional and physical aggression. Yun nga yung binanggit kanina ng mga effects. So discrimination in the workplace is no exception. It can happen anytime, anywhere, and at any level. In general perspective, and vice reasoning, we need to be more open to someone's opinion, and our vision to anyone should be equal, no matter who it is. So, dapat pantay-pantay lang ang pagtingin natin sa kanila at sa ating sarili. At dapat na mag-isa sa trabaho. Hindi lang para lumawak at umasenso pa ang isang negosyo, kundi magkaroon ng kapayapaan, kabutihan at pakisama sa loob at labas ng trabaho. If we see someone is discriminated by others, we should not just be involved in, but not to tolerate that kind of activity inside or outside man ng business. If we have someone who is in higher authority, please, we need to tell them that as soon as possible so they can discuss how they will approach and discipline who is discriminating. To give an instance about this kind of corporate issue, we can say that men are accepted in the employment of the company than the most of women. By giving a stereotypical scenario, they think that men are better than to women for the reason like physical strength and ability to multitask. We should not agree on that way of thinking because not all men are like that, and some women can able or even surpass what men can able to do. Alam naman natin na iba-iba tayo na kakayahan at kahinaan, kaya dapat pantay-pantay lang ang pagtingin natin sa kanila. Malay natin, mas magaling pa sila kaysa sa atin. Kaya dapat na willing tayong tumanggap ng pagbabago at dapat makisama tayo sa kanila. So, we should now avoid the discrimination. So,
about discrimination. Gusto ko lang din i-share, di ba, kasi palagi natin na pag-uusapan ng discrimination. Kayo ba, na-discriminate na ba kayo?
Yes.
Not in workplace pero na-discriminate na kayo. So, yun nga, kaya siya nakapaloob dyan kasi it's one of the most important aspect or subtopic of corporate issues. So, we should listen to what he said na parang we should stop it na. Yun lang naman yung gusto ko sabihin sa iyo.
alright, thank you, Sidney. And Mr. Baligwat, the stage is yours.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, Mr. Caminete. So, let's move on now to the next corporate issue, which is the employee privacy. So, before we further discuss about the employee privacy, how can we define it? So, we can define the person having the state of being free from the intrusions and observations from people around them that makes them feel disturbed is called employee privacy. So, for both employees and employers, privacy is a crucial component of the formal and psychological employment contract. Additionally, significant is the relationship between workplace privacy and worker performance. So, privacy is crucial due to its effects on employee internally in both good and bad ways, such as being violated by his own rights of privacy, which he or she can experience lack of confidence due to someone's violating his or her privacy. Siyempre, naging cautious ang isang tao sa ginagawa na sa isang workplace if masyadong pinapansin yung bawat galaw mo. pangingin cautious tayo sa mga dalawa at kung ano ba dapat yung gawin natin tama or mali. And also, there are several ways in which a company's practices and policies could infringe on an employee's right to privacy that are unfortunately common in the workplace, such as physical searches, video surveillance, background and credit checks. So, doon tayo sa surveillance camera or video kung paano ba nag-violate yung privacy. So, especially if an employee, if yung surveillance camera or video is nag-record ng mga conversations, which is minsan may mga nasabi tayong ano-ano sa ibang tao, di ba?
Pero di ba ang surveillance, okay lang siya as long as alam, di ba? Alam ng employee na may surveillance.
And if yung video surveillance is yung nire-regular is yung
Hindi na yung kasali yung personal.
Tsaka yung mga conversations is may mga nasabi kasi mga syempre hindi may iwasan.
Sa bagay.
Then ayun, syempre kung negative statement man yung nasabi natin sa ibang worker, syempre may possibility na malaman yun. And kumalat, and magkaroon ng conflict in the long run. So next is the background checks, in which ito depende sa situation to kung negative ba yung background check ng isang employee or hindi. In which yun nga, naka-experience siya ng kung positive job naman yung kung positive naman yung background check ng isang employee, which is ano naman sa kanya, goods naman sa kanya.
I have a question. Sa background check, paano siya nagiging negative? Kasi di ba kapag background check, kailangan talaga yan. Kapag mag-apply ka ng trabaho, kailangan mo ng NBI. Di ba? Pero gusto ko lang malaman, paano siya nagiging mali na parang nasasobrahan? Paano nasasobrahan ang background check? In what instances?
In instance na, kasi may mga company kasi na parang hinahanap pa nila, didigdig pa nila yung mga background checks. Like, may mga personal issues, confidentiality, like so next naman is yung physical searches, which is hindi naman siya minor na okay sa dahil ngayon is may device naman na pwede na
makikita
na detect if may something ba na makakarm sa workplace like death or something. And ayun, may answer ako based sa business ko ngayon lang. Can you give me one example of the incidents of employee privacy?
Siyempre if the video surveillance has sounds that can record conversations in the workplace, which can violate the employee privacy. And of course, if the surveillance cameras in the workplace are not used for crucial times or the employee productivity.
So another one, last.
I think like sa background checks, like pagka nasobrahan na yun, yung sinabi nyo nga kanina, na if you dig deeper or naging personal na yung background check nila, parang sobra na. Hindi dapat pwede na ganun. Dapat kung ano lang yung needed na informations ng company, yun lang dapat yung ibigay.
That's right. So, the next, the last corporate issue that we'll be tackling for today is the anti-competitive practice of corporations. So first of all, what do we mean by anti-competitive practice corporation? It is an action taken by one or more business to make it difficult or impossible for other business to participate or prosper in their market. Or based on the presentation, an action taken by one or more businesses to make it difficult or possible for other business to participate or prosper in their market is known as anti-competitive activity. So, anti-competitive practice are attempts by business to interfere with market forces. Parang yung sa anti-competitive activity, nilimit nila yung competition sa different markets. So yun nga, it refers to unfair business practice to a wide range of business practices that artificially limit competition. In which yung effect nito is negative, both business and accounting. Because for the business, anti-competitive practice will result in limited choices of products for customers, artificially high price and less innovation. And this can take many different forms, such as making it more difficult for customers to switch to competitors, raising entrance barriers into a market, or subsidizing one company with another. So, ito yung mga examples based sa presentation.
Yes.
Nung mga anti-competitive practices of corporation. So that's all for the coverage of corporate issues. Thank you. And I will pass this mic to Mr. Mike.
Moving on to individual issues to be presented by Ms. Mary Joyce D. Sigonanan, Ms. Shaymar R. Senok, and Mr. Miguel Ailes as the researchers. Ms. Kunanan, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sidney Baile. So now, before I proceed to the discussion, is there someone that has an idea in the individual issue? Mr. Mark.
Individual issues are among the most crucial ones in business ethics since they had to do with promoting moral behavior.
Thank you so much, Mr. Galzote, for that amazing idea. So now, let's proceed to the topic. Individual issues. It's crucial that a person handle all violations equally. This will convey that it is expected that all employees will abide by corporate policies and that anyone who does not will face the same penalties. In addition, more complex issues like accommodating diversity, compassionate decision-making, and compliance and governance in line with an organization's core values are also important. So, in individual issues, it will demonstrate that compliance with corporate issues, or rather corporate policies, is expected of all employees. And that those who fail to do so will be subject to the same consequences. So, protecting employee and customers' rights, making sure that all corporate activities are fair and just, and advancing sa common good, and syempre, making sure that workers' individual values and beliefs are respected should all be the forefront of ethical decision-making processes. So, one of the most important business ethics concerns is encouraging behavior that is honest and reliable. However, more intricate challenges like embracing diversity, making decisions with compassion, and adhering to compliance and governance principles along with an organization's basic values are equally crucial. So, individual issues has 5 subtopics, which are conflict of interest, sexual harassment, political tactics, employee theft, and whistleblowing. So here are my co-group, Ms. Shane Marceno and Mr. Miguel Ailes, to help me discuss the subtopic of individual issues. First up is Mr. Shane Marceno. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Kananan. I'll be discussing a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest exists whenever an employee places personal gains ahead of the company's, endangering the company's ability to do business, its financial standing, or even its proprietary information. In the business world, conflicts of interest are all too common. It creates the potential for trust issues between both the individual and the company, which is especially problematic in the event that the individual subjects the company to the possibility of legal action or cultivates a toxic environment in the workplace. Um, a conflict of interest occurs when someone in a position of power is able to personally benefit from their position when legislating or ruling on a specific issue, and occurs when a person's or entity's vested interests raise a question of whether their actions, judgment, and or decision making can be unbiased. Um, for example, in the financial industry, an agency problem refers to a type of conflict of interest where agents don't fully represent the best interests of their principals. And the Enron scandal is an extreme example of an agency problem that led to the collapse of what was at the time one of the largest companies in the United States. Now, here is Miss Kunanan to continue the presentation. Miss Kunanan, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shane. So now let's proceed to sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is any unwanted sexual behavior that causes a person to feel humiliated, offended, or intimidated in any combination of these states. female employees are both vulnerable to sexual assault, although female employees are more likely to experience sexual harassment. The most common incidents show how persons in positions of authority use their influence to abuse their subordinates sexually. So, a corporation expects all of its employees to conduct themselves in an appropriate and moral manner at all times. So, employees' rights and well-being must constantly be safeguarded if they are to perform their duties and be free from any type of abuse, according to Boland 2005. According to him also, sexual harassment is any unwanted sexually explicit form of coercion or intimidation. So, the most prevalent occurrences demonstrate how those in positions of power abuse their influence to sexually assault their subordinates. As what I've said earlier, female workers are more likely to encounter sexual harassment.
May gusto lang i-edit. Parang kanina lang din sa corporate issues, di ba, ang discrimination ang pinaka-importante na yung subtopic ng corporate. Well, dito kasi, sexual harassment, ito din ang pinaka-importante dapat natin tandaan. Na-mention nga ni Ms. Kuranan kanina, babae ang most likely na nakaka-experience yan. Kayo ba? May experience na ba kayo?
Yes.
Ikaw, oo, meron na. It's a very personal one. And that should be the lesson for everyone na ang sexual harassment is hindi lang siya nangyayari sa business. Sa lahat siya, di ba? So, yun lang yung gusto kong masabi sa inyo na it's one of the most important subtopic of business ethics.
So, thank you so much for that idea, Mr. Sidney. So, to end my presentation, I want to ask you one question. So, according to the statistics of a company, what individual issue is the most prevalent form of abuse? Anyone? Mr. Robert?
Sexual harassment.
Thank you so much. So now, let's proceed to the next subtopic. Ms. Shane Moore, the stage is yours.
Thank you again, Mr. Nanan. I'm discussing political tactics. Politics is a reality in every organization. Political tactics by their nature are designed to achieve specific self-serving outcomes from one or more organizational members. The agonistic discourse is similar to the political tactics. Some tactics are designed to create conditions and basis of support, whereas others are designed to solicit specific favors from a specific other. Apolitical tactics are a subset of political behavior used by a social actor to influence other social actors in order to gain self-interest. Organizational political tactics differ from influence tactics, but they share many similarities. For example, in an organization, there are various types of political tactics. Some strategies others are legitimate, others are illegitimate. When the tactics are based on deception and misinformation, they are difficult to justify yourself on moral grounds. Although political tactics are common in organizations, not all are considered legitimate. Organizational politics can be practiced by all members of a company. In fact, it appears like everyone, regardless of hierarchical position, is a player in the game of politics. As a result, we turn to a set of employees at all levels frequently employing political tactics. So, before I conclude with this presentation, I would like to ask the question. The agonistic discord is similar in what? Mr. Baliban?
Political tactics.
Now, here is Mr. Iris to continue the presentation. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Shaymar. First of all, we should first answer the question, what is employee theft? Employee theft is one of the most widespread and serious issues in human resource management. Employee theft has a huge impact on a business, which can lead to negative financial, operational, and psychological effects that extend beyond the employee who committed the theft. Some of the most common types of things stolen by employees, which are money, time, supplies, merchandise, and information. For us to deeply understand what is employee theft, I have prepared an example. So, a news case from Mendoza 2020, the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, detained a payroll employee of the Philippine Sports Commission for allegedly embezzling 14.4 million pesos in an athlete and coach salary and benefits, which he deposited to his own account. The suspect is currently in custody and might be charged with qualified theft, falsification of official records, and violation of the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012 under the revised penal code. So before I move on to whistleblowing, I would like to ask the question, do you think that employee theft has a huge impact in the business industry? Yes, Mr. Arya.
I think yes, because maaaring maka-affect sa reputasyon ng isang organizations dahil ito ay mapapatunayan sa kanila na sila ay nagkasala, hindi lang sa negosyo kundi sa reputasyon nila bilang isang legitimate negosyo.
Thank you, Mr. Ariel. Any other answers? Yes, Ms. Nara.
I think yes, because malalower nito yung payroll by releasing employees, delaying key personal promotions, and syempre putting company expansion plans on hold, ma-hold lahat.
Okay, as we move on to whistleblowing, Ms. Nara. So, in business ethics, whistleblowing is defined as the act of an employee or former employee informing upper management, a third-party authority, or the general public of what he views to be unethical or illegal behavior. Furthermore, whistleblowing is generally viewed through the lens of professional ethics. The researchers saw that whistleblowing can affect individual issues, and it may often lead to negative consequences even though a person in charge was telling the truth. So we have a question here. Does whistleblowing have a huge impact on business ethics and for the person who revealed it? From people's perspective, revealing the truth doesn't define a person's bad personality. However, it shows the honesty and loyalty of an employee to his job and co-workers. Whistleblowing is somewhat disadvantageous in a sense that it gives a bad image to your employer and your company, while on the other hand, whistleblowing is good in a sense that by revealing the truth, you somewhat prevent future problems that can even grow or worsen. So I provided an example in order for us to thoroughly understand the meaning and process of whistleblowing. According to the article of Panganiban 2020, which examined the Estrada Plunder case, a landmark case of whistleblowing in the Philippines, it is one of the country's largest corruption cases involving over 4 billion pesos, or nearly $80 million. It was the first time a sitting president had been impeached, detained, charged, and subsequently convicted. In this case, the researchers saw that whistleblowing can affect individual issues and may often lead to negative consequences even though a person in charge was telling the truth. To conclude this topic, I want to ask the question, do you think that whistleblowing has a huge impact on business ethics? Yes, Mr. Violet?
Well, actually, yes, it has a very huge impact. Kasi sabi din kayo ni Mr. Ariel na kaya niyang sirain yung reputation ng isang business. And hindi lang naman negative ang meron siya. Meron din siyang positive, which is pwede niyang sabihin kung ano yung totoo nangyayari doon para hindi na ma-worsen, as what you have mentioned earlier. So I think na yes, it has a very huge impact, especially on corporations na malalaki na yung mga sako.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Violet. And that's all for our topic. And I would like to call on Mr. Violet to continue our presentation.
Well, that wraps up our presentation. It's assessment time. Do you want to have an assessment time?
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on to assessment time. We'll take turns answering a question, and everyone will have 15 seconds to come up with an answer. Are you ready?
Yes!
Let's go! Question number 1. What are the 3 main branches of applied ethics? A. Normative ethics, IT ethics, business ethics. B. Engineering ethics, business ethics, and bioethics. C. Bioethics, business ethics, and environmental ethics.
Ay, feeling ko sila.
Okay? So,
I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet when you eat cream. Yes, yes, you be the person, yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great to respect it.
Okay, I think it's letter C. Bioethics, business ethics, and environmental ethics.
Kalimutan ko.
Ako na to guys.
Okay. Number 2, we have Mr. Nelson Herrera.
There are fundamental norms that apply everywhere in the world and define what kind of business operations are proper and improper. I think there.
15 seconds.
Tama na naman. Tama na.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet when you eat cream. Yes, yes, you be the person, yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great to respect it.
Okay, what's the answer?
What's the answer, Mr. Herrera?
The answer is A, business ethics.
Okay, let's see.
The answer is...
Okay, let's clap for Mr. Herrera. Number 3, we have Miss Mary Joyce Curanan.
So, my question is, this kind of argument is typical in the business sector. A, legal argument. B, discrimination. C, employee privacy.
Okay, your 15 seconds starts now.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet when you eat cream. Yes, yes, you be the person, yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great to respect it.
So, my answer would be the legal argument.
Okay, let's see if it's legal argument. Okay. Okay, question number 4.
Question number 4, which of the following is not a branch of applied ethics?
Okay, 15 seconds starts now.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet when you eat cream. Yes, yes, you be the person, yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great to respect it.
So, my answer will be letter C, meta-ethics.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Donald Cyrus Oriel. Okay, your question, Mr. Oriel. Can you read the question?
This is issue in the workplace is based on certain prejudice, and of course when an employee is treated unfavorably because of gender, sexuality, race, religion, pregnancy, and maternity or disability.
Okay, 15 seconds. Start. Wait lang. Okay.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet when you eat cream. Yes, yes, you be the person, yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great to respect it.
Yes, your answer, Mr. Doran.
So my answer was letter A.
Okay, let's see if it's letter A. Okay, congratulations. Next up, we have Miss Shane Marcelo.
Developing the ability to recognize ethical issues within a wider context is a crucial first step in learning ethics.
Okay. Your timer will start now.
I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet when you eat cream. Yes, yes, you be the person, yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great to respect it.
Your answer is
The answer is A.
true? Okay, let's see. Okay, number 7, we have Mr. Gabinete.
Just read it.
Just may employees are both vulnerable to
sexual assault, although female employees are more likely to experience sexual harassment.
15 seconds.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet for your eating. Yes, yes, you be the boss, and yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great, you respect it.
Okay, your answer is?
I think my answer is A.
Okay, congratulations. Ang rating clean of Mr. Vincent Baligwan.
The pandemic has a significant impact on the global economy during the previous 2 years.
Okay.
My answer is
Wait.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet for your eating. Yes, yes, you be the boss, and yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great, you respect it.
Your answer
is A.
true. Okay. Let's see.
Okay.
Number 9, Mr. Robert Adel Samir Fahil.
Today, in order to avoid getting into legal issues, businesses need to conduct themselves ethically. A, true, B, false, C, okay.
Yes, I do the cooking, yes, I do the cleaning. Yes, I keep the nana real sweet for your eating. Yes, yes, you be the boss, and yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great, you respect it.
What's your answer?
So, my answer is obviously A.
And okay.
Yay!
Okay, next number 10. Can you read first one?
Business ethics does not matter.
Okay.
Your 15 seconds.
Tama na kayo.
Yes, yes, you be the boss, and yes, I be respecting. Whatever that you tell me, cause it's great, you respect it.
Answer is?
The answer is?
False. Letter B.
Okay, congratulations. Okay,
Basic.
so that ends our presentation. Again, this is our topic, business ethics.
Today, in order to avoid getting into legal issues,
Thank you, Miss Kunanan.
Thank you so much.
We are the group 2. Thank you for listening.